Hi and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave and this is episode 1196 and today's date is February 5th, 2017 and the title of the episode is The Current Economic Collapse News Brief. Now, as we've been following this economy, we have been seeing that the economic indicators, they have been telling us that we are in a recession heading into a depression. And we see a lot of this information coming out now. Nothing has really changed since Trump has become president. Yes, there are a lot of promises. There are a lot of companies out there saying they're going to be doing a lot of different things like creating jobs, manufacturing. But what we're really seeing is the economic data is still declining. And we're seeing more and more indication that the economy is not doing well. We see consumer bankruptcies. Well, they're on the rise for the first time since 2010. U.S. bankruptcy filings by consumers rose by 5.4% in January compared to January last year to 54,421, according to the American Bankruptcy Institute. In December, they've already risen 4.5% from a year earlier. This was the first time that all this has happened since 2010. And when we look at this, and we go back in time to November of 2015, we see that bankruptcies, well, they began to surge during this period and continued surging on a year-over-year basis in 2016 to reach a full-year total of 37,823 filings, up 26% from the prior year and the highest since 2014. And here's the irony. According to all major consumer sentiment surveys, economic confidence has soared in December and January. And of course, as we know, the corporate media and everyone is out there calling it's the Trump effect. But we see right now that nothing has changed in the economy. Yes, people might feel good about it. They also felt really great about it in 2008. And then all of a sudden, the entire economy just completely fell apart. And feeling good about a new president, feeling good about creating jobs, feeling good that things are going to change, it doesn't mean that there's going to be change right away. It doesn't mean the economy is just going to turn around. And this is what we're seeing. The economy, the underlying factors, well, they're still declining. Things are still getting worse. Companies are still laying off. And until things really change, and I'm talking about real economic change, getting rid of the debt, getting rid of the central bank, getting rid of what we've been under since 1913. Until we do all of this, nothing is really going to change. Now, we see a judge over the weekend. This judge blocked Trump's travel ban. It's not really a ban, it's a temporary stay on who's coming into the country, but everyone likes to call it a ban, a Muslim ban, whatever they like to call it. They're trying to put a vetting process in place to make sure that nobody gets into the country that shouldn't get into the country. But it looks like a judge decided to block Trump's travel ban. And now DHS, well, they're not implementing Trump's immigration order, and they're letting everyone in right now. Now, we see that Trump went ahead and he appealed that decision. And the decision was made by Judge Robart of Seattle. He is the U.S. District Judge. And the judge, he is calling for a written response to the appeal to be filed with the court later Sunday and Monday. It was waiting further submission from Washington and Minnesota states on Sunday and from the government on Monday. Now, the government's appeal said the decision by Judge Robart in Washington poses an immediate harm to the public, thwarts enforcement of an executive order, and second-guesses the president's national security judgment about the quantum of risk posed by the admission of certain classes of non-citizens and the best means of minimizing that risk. And we will have to see how this turns out. But what's very interesting about all of this is that there was an American contractor in Iraq, and he decided to weigh in on the ban. And his name is Steve Gurn, and he offered his viewpoint on what is happening on immigration, and here's a small snippet of what he had to say.
I just want to take a minute and reach out to everybody and talk about a certain subject that came up the other morning, and I think people should know about it. Obviously, I don't work over in the United States. I work overseas, and I'm currently in Iraq, which is one of the countries that were on the list. And there's been a lot of discussion about the executive order. Obviously, in the United States, there's lots going on, and over here, there's a lot going on as well. Just a lot of things you all don't see. So the other morning, we were having a discussion on the executive order, and a lot of the Iraqis obviously showed their displeasure in this executive order, and why they feel like they've been betrayed by the United States and so on. Now, I'm not here to get into a discussion with you about policies or this or that or anything like that. I just want to talk to you and make a comment about the discussion I actually had with these gentlemen. So I listened to what they had to say, and after they were done, yelling and screaming about their opinion on things, I asked a simple question, and I got an answer to that simple question. And I got it without hesitation. My simple question was, as an American, if I went out in town right now, would I be welcome? And they instantly said, absolutely not, you would not be welcome. And I said, okay, so what would happen if I went out in town? And they said, the locals would snatch me up and kill me within an hour. I'd be tortured first, and after they were done torturing me, I'd probably be beheaded. It would, go on video for everybody to see as, an example. And so I already knew this was going to happen, but I wanted to hear it from them. And, the point I'm trying to make is, this is the local populace that would do this. This isn't ISIS. This isn't Al-Qaeda. This isn't the PMU. This isn't a militia from the Iranians or anything like that. This is the local populace that would do this. So my question to them was pretty simple then after that. If you would do this to me in your country, why would I let you in my country? Because all this means to me is that if you have the opportunity to take the life of an American, you would do it. So maybe that's something you all need to think about back there. If this is the way some of these cultures feel, this is the way that these countries feel about Americans, why would you be so naive to believe that if they came to the United States, they would do anything any different than what they would do right here in their own country?
Now, as you can see, the people there, they have a completely different viewpoint than people realize. Because we need to go to the root of the problem. And I've said this over and over and over, where the root of the problem is that we've been going into these countries, destroying their way of life, destroying their homes, and replacing their governments with the governments that the United States government, the central bankers, want to keep the elite, the central banks, happy. And what we're seeing right now is at this point is that the U.S. government, the central bankers, well, that's the cause of all of this that we're seeing right now. And one way to stop all of this, to stop the problems, is to stop the wars. Stop going into these countries, destroying the country, creating years and years of war. For what? For paper and ink, to keep the central bank system going. And Paul Craig Roberts is out there, and I completely agree with him, saying the simplest way to end the refugee problem is to stop producing refugees. It's that easy. But we can see right now, these individuals, they don't want it to stop because they like their system. Remember, Tulsi Gabbard went out to Syria, spoke to the people, spoke to Assad, spoke and looked around to see what was going on, and the people told her point blank, we know what's going on here. The United States is supporting terrorism. the United States government, the central bankers, well, they're pushing for regime change. And they know if Assad goes, they know that Al-Qaeda, the Islamic State, or another terrorist organization, they'll become the leader of that country. And they know their way of life will completely end. And we can see right now that Tulsi Gabbard submitted this bill, which is Stop Arming Terrorists Act. All that needs to be done is for Trump to support this, stop the wars in these countries, and reset the system. And we'll have to see how he follows through on any of this. We see General Mattis is out there. This is the U.S. Defense Secretary. And he's saying that, well, there's no need for the U.S. military to move in the South China Sea. We don't need to do anything at this point. But on the other hand, we see the Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson. Well, he's on the opposite side, where he's out there saying that China should not be allowed access to islands it has built in the contested South China Sea. The White House also vowed to defend international territories in the strategic waterway. Tillerson's remarks, like those from the White House, suggest that the possibility of U.S. military action, even though Mattis is saying that, no, we do not want to take military action. We should use diplomacy. And I agree with Mattis. We should use diplomacy. Speak to these countries. Speak to the leaders instead of provoking them over and over and over. We know Trump is out there and he is looking at Iran right now. The United States government central bankers place sanctions on Iran for their missile test. And we can see that Iran is not going to stop creating these missiles. First of all, it does not violate the nuclear arms deal. They do have the right to protect themselves. And we see right now that at the point where they received more sanctions, they decided to test more missiles. And they also came out with something else that's very interesting, that if the U.S. should continue to provoke Iran, Tehran would disclose the names of U.S. individuals and companies involved in helping and founding terrorist groups. And we're going to have to watch this and see how this plays out. We know the Pentagon, they released footage on the Yemen raid, and we know there was information that was leaked, warned Al-Qaeda. They fled the area. And the Pentagon decided, you know what? We're going to post a video to the Defense Video Imagery Distribution Center website, which said this is what happened in Yemen, to justify the complete operation of what happened there, which cost the life of one U.S. Navy SEAL and other Yemeni civilians. Now, the footage showed a ski mask man encouraging people to build bombs, with the U.S. Central Command spokesman touting it as an example of the volumes of sensitive Al-Qaeda terror planning information recovered during the operation. Now, we know Al-Qaeda is supported by the U.S. government, well, we should say CIA agencies and other neocons, the elite. And they support Al-Qaeda, they support the Islamic State, Al-Sham, Al-Nusra. And the video, well, it turned out to be a fake. And people started to realize that the footage entitled Lessons in How to Destroy the Cross were first posted to the Site Intelligence Group, which is run by Rita Katz, which we know is a propaganda outlet. And it looks like this was posted back in 2007. So after this came out, what happened was the Pentagon started taking the video down because they were found out that they were posting fake video of what happened in Yemen. And we can see right now, nothing's really changed. They're still trying to convince the American people of we're fighting terrorists. The United States government central bankers have been supporting terrorists. Tulsi Gabbard was out there. The people were saying, we know what's going on. We know who supports them. And from all the evidence from the past, we realize and we understand that the government has been supplying, has been funding, has been bombing areas to advance the terrorist groups in the area. And the whole thing is to take control of the Middle East. This is why we have the refugees. This is why we have the immigration problem. We need to go back to the source. Now we see China is getting involved in Syria right now. Chinese humanitarian aid to the Syrian people. Well, China decided to give them about $16 million in aid to help them out. Now, the Trump administration, they have scrapped plans to seize Raqqa. And everything that they were planning, well, that has come to a screeching halt right now. They're saying we don't have the manpower. This is not what we should be doing. We should be talking to Russia. We should be working with them to remove the Islamic State. We see the Jordan Air Force. They have bombed targets in southern Syria. Now, once again, Jordan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Israel, and many other nations have been supporting the Islamic State. They've been using this terror group to remove Assad. Now, are they really bombing the Islamic State? Most likely not. They're probably bombing the Syrian armed forces, civilians, and many others. Because right now, we're starting to get information that the United States government, well, they haven't been posting every single airstrike. And most of the airstrikes have been hitting civilians, women, and children, and not the Islamic State, not the terrorist groups. Now, Trump had an interview with Bill O'Reilly, and this is going to be aired on Super Bowl Sunday, right before the Super Bowl. But there was something that was leaked out of the interview, the preview, saying, how could you be working with Putin? How can you respect Putin? This is O'Reilly saying it to Trump. And Trump says, well, I respect a lot of people. That doesn't mean I get along with them. And O'Reilly pressed Trump and said, but he's a killer. He's killed people. Well, if you look back in time, going back to 2013, when he tried to calm the situation down in Syria, because we saw the warships, they were in the Mediterranean, ready to go into Syria and bomb because of the sarin gas attack, which turned out to be a complete false flag. Well, he calmed that situation down. Then we had a coup d'etat in Ukraine, where the United States government central banker spent $5 billion to overthrow the elected leader, put in a puppet government. Well, who came up with the peace plan there? Well, it was Putin once again. Minsk I, Minsk II agreement. Now we see Graham and McCain out there through this video that was put out saying this is the year of offensive, which means let's go to war. We see out in Syria, Russia has asked the United States many, many times, join up with us, let's go after terrorism. The United States said, no, we don't want to coordinate with Russia in this area. You fight terrorism your way, we'll fight terrorism our way. Because we know what the United States government central bankers were doing. They were supporting terrorism. And Trump came out to say, well, there's a lot of killers. What? Do you think our country is so innocent? And it looks like what Trump is doing right now is he's trying to bring out the truth a little bit at a time. You can't just come out and say, listen, we support all the terrorist groups here. We're the cause of everything that's going on, because people will not be able to handle this. You could see already as truth is coming out, people are getting angrier and angrier and angrier, because you have to remember what happens with the truth. And you have to remember back, we discussed this before in a prior report from German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer. All truth passes through three stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. That's what we're seeing right now. People are very violent. They're opposing it. So you can't just come out and just completely tell the truth, because people would have complete nervous breakdowns. We would see rioting in the streets right off the bat. Then third, it is accepted as being self-evident. Actually, Gandhi said, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you. Same thing, fighting you. Then you win. And we are definitely seeing this today. And from this interview and these little things that are coming out with fake news, that the United States is not so innocent, These are little breadcrumbs that are being thrown out there to try to bring people into the fold. But what's going to happen is people are going to get angry and angrier before it gets better. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.